I got this table for $200 at Second Use. It's a salvage table. And I want to put it in the bus using these legs. I got these legs online. This side is the bottom, and it recesses into the floor. And then this side is the tabletop. And the whole thing just they just pop apart like that. But once they're in, it's solid, and I've got two of them. So I'm going to be taking that table apart and cleaning it up, and then reassembling it in a way that allows me to mount it to those legs. The table is ultimately going to go here when it's set up, so both couches it'll just basically sit between both couches, and we'll have like an eating space, working space, whatever space, nice tabletop to sit on. But I want to be able to stow it so that I can pull these couches together and make the bed. So behind this couch, there's 2 inches of space all the way to the floor. And that was intentional so that I could actually stow the table back behind the couch. The legs could go into a drawer or something like that. But as you can see, you've got lots of space back there. So I got to figure out how to make the table a little bit thinner. The tabletop is 3/4 of an inch, but the base needs to be no more than 1 1/4, and right now it's 1 1/2. So I'm going to figure out how I want to mount it after I pry it apart. Got all of my prying tools, and I am in the process, just starting the process of removing the frame under the table now. So I got the legs off, and now I'm going through and prying out some random nails and other hardware that I'm finding just around the table, and then we'll see what we got. It looks like the table is not really nailed together in many places. There's like tongue and groove. All of these slats are tongue and groove from what I can tell. And then they've got these brads that kind of nail this piece of quarter round into the edges in random places. It doesn't even seem to be evenly spaced. And every once in a while you got these brads that correspond with this support. So really, I think that if I pry up these supports, pry out those nails, really it's just the frame that's holding it in. So I'm going to go with taking apart the frame on the outside edge first, and then pry these guys up. Alright, so we got all the supports off. Now all of these boards are pretty much just loose. I mean, I'm doing this one-handed. I could probably pull these guys apart, although these ones look like they're married pretty well. Anyway, on the front side of these boards, it's got a nice finish, but I feel like if I nail the nails through them backwards, that I'm going to be damaging the top finish more than it already is, and not in a good way. So I think that what I'm going to do now is just cut off all of these nail heads. Still kind of mulling it over, but I'm pretty sure that's what I'm going to do. All of this is lint and dirt and crap that's just kind of accumulated over the years and created voids, or just stuffed the voids that are there. So I'm just going through with a rag and wiping all of this stuff off, and then coming back with a vacuum cleaner and vacuuming it all up, just to clean up the boards a little better before I put them back together. Yesterday, I took this table apart, cleaned it all up in between, and I actually ended up removing most of those nails. Pretty much just some on the end. There's one in the middle, some over there. This thing was put together kind of like a floor. I'm wondering if this was actual like flooring material. It seems kind of narrow for that, but anyway, what I'm going to be doing next is taking the angle grinder to a couple of these nails, or basically just removing the nails that are still sticking out, because these are the ones that can't be removed without marring the top surface. So I'm just going to cut them off, and then it's time to put this table back together. I removed a few, 2 rows of boards that were kind of messed up, and flipped the table over and kind of put it together as a sanity check. I'm going to need to get some more clamps to make sure that everything marries together really well. And then may or may not do something with the surface. I kind of like the way that it is, and I'm afraid that if I sand it down or do anything that it'll kind of lose the character. For the support of the table, all of the slats on the table, I'm going to be putting 3/4 inch plywood. I'm basically just trying to use what I've got here in the shop. So this is 3/4 inch plywood. I'm going to cut it to 32 3/4 inches, which is wide enough to so all the slats can be nailed into it from underneath, and it should provide adequate support. Okay, so I've done a couple more measurements just to kind of see how the structure of this thing is going to work, and I'm pretty confident that what I've got now is going to be just fine. Alright, so what I've done is attached the end board to the support system just with tacks from underneath. They're very shallow, but it's enough to kind of hold it in place so that these guys don't move around too much. And then I'm going to glue each board up against this one until we basically build this table back out again with the supports underneath. And I'm going to squeeze it with my vise clamps that I've got over there. I got some more over there. Squeeze it so that there's no space in between all the boards, and then tack from underneath. That's the plan, so we'll see how it goes. Okay, so I put a little bit of adhesive down on both of these boards. These guys are all loose. This one's the only one attached, and now I'm going to start systematically bringing them one row at a time with the Tight Bond glue, wood glue right there. Running it into the groove, pinching it together, and then continuing down until all of the boards are on here. And then I'm going to grab the vise clamps and clamp everything together nice and tight. Alright, so far so good. I'm on my second set of adhesive now that these guys have kind of been squeezed into place. Got one spot where the glue kind of squeezed through a little bit, but I don't think it'll be a big deal. And just got to keep going. I'm just taking each piece one at a time. Come on. Adding some glue in there and squeezing it together, and sometimes coaxing it with the rubber mallet. The table is all clamped up. I've got C-clamps along the side that are holding down pieces of wood that are keeping it from rippling, while squeezing all the joints together with my big clamps, these big vice grip clamps. We'll just let this dry up for a while and then figure out what we're going to do for trim. Okay, so I'm going to carefully take this apart now. It's day 2 or day 3 of this table project, and hopefully it all holds together really well, and then I'm going to tack it from the bottom. Okay, so I went through and I put some brad nails in on either side of the plywood. It's also glued down. I did that on both sides, and one thing I noticed when I flipped this over was that it doesn't squeak. It feels really solid. It feels like a solid piece of wood. The old table was really squeaky and kind of flimsy feeling. This feels like it's acting like a one solid piece of wood, which is nice. That's what I was going for. I'm going to cut this little end piece off where it kind of sticks out a little too far. Same over here. It ended up doing that because as I was vicing it together, I lost a bunch of space. So the table ended up being more narrow than I had anticipated, so I'll have to do that. And then I got some cherry pieces that I'm going to use as trim around the outside, because the quarter round that was on the table before, which looks like this, is in not so great shape. I don't want people getting splinters off of it. So yeah, it'll get a new trim piece that goes all the way around, and then it's ready for mounting. Alright, so the edges of the table I also have decided to kind of refine a little bit. Mostly just the end pieces. These guys are fine, these are straight, but this, as you can see, they're not all in a very straight line. So I'm going to be cutting the tips. And actually, I already did it on this side. So if you take a look at the difference, looks much nicer. So I'm just going to go ahead and do it on that side, and then I might need to trim my pieces just a little bit. Okay, so I ran these guys through the table saw so that they are the proper thickness that I need. And so now they're ready for staining, but first I gotta sand them down. Table's looking really good. I did cut off, shave off both ends, recut my trim so that it all fits really well. So yeah, let's sand it down and see what we can do. My strips are ready. Put some shellac on them. This is cherry. So now it's time to attach them to the table and make it look really nice. Alright, there we have it. New trim around the outside. It came together really nice. So I'm gonna go take it into the bus one more time just to double check how I'm going to be putting the legs on, and then it's time to get to work on the legs. The table is stowed, so now it's time to attach the hardware. And it does so now, as I kind of anticipated with the trim, the table is now 1/3 of an inch or 3/4 of an inch lower, but I don't think it's going to be a big deal or make a huge difference in the bigger scheme of things. So I'm going to attach these pieces just 3/4 of an inch off of where I had them marked before. It looks good. I like it. This is where it's going to go. In order for me to move forward now, I need to cut a hole in the floor. That's not going to be fun. Okay, so this is the hole saw I'm going to be using. It's a little bit bigger than this hole, but that's because the hole itself has these supports that make it so I have to cut a little bit wider. So I'm going to cut the hole, drop this in, bolt it down. The thing that's going to get in the way, or the thing that's going to be a problem, is that I think the floor is more shallow than this. So I'm going to actually end up cutting through the floor into the metal below the bus, which sucks, but has to be done. Taking the lead drill bit out. Now that I am down in the floor, it smells like burning glue. Oh. Alright, so I've gone through the floor and the subfloor, and now I can see the insulation under the subfloor. So yeah, flooring, middle of the flooring, subfloor, insulation. So I'm going to keep going. Well, let's give this a test first. Yeah, see, it doesn't quite go low enough, so we got to go through that insulation too. All right, so I'm all the way down to the bottom. I am in. I can touch the metal floor of the bus now, but this is too tall, so I have to go through that. All right, this just dropped, and I can see through the bottom here. I can't quite tell what it is that this is stuck on. It looks like there's a support right here, but it's not. It's just one of those corrugated support pieces. I'm gonna have to go to the other side and take a look. All right, well, just my luck. I landed on a support beam, so I'm gonna need to figure out how to pry up the floor without going into the support beam. That's fun. All right, I just looked under the bus. There's a possibility that this metal piece is welded to the frame, but I'm going to bet that it's not in this one little particular spot and try to pry it out. The other thing I noticed is that about where this hole is about where my gas line is. This was pretty much the worst spot to be drilling because I hit a beam over here and I might hit the gas line over here. That makes things just so annoying. If I had been just 2 inches that way, 2 inches that way, would have avoided all of these issues. But it's kind of too late to go back now, so I'm going to figure this part out and then move my gas line. New plan, instead of going all the way through the floor, I'm gonna go cut off the bottom of this thing down in the basement with my angle grinder so that it's a little bit more shallow, because it's so close here that I think that that's really just the thickness of the piece, the metal that is used to make this thing. Like, you can see how thick it is. It's not thin. So if I cut off just the bottom of it and put it down into the hole, I'm hoping that the leg will still bottom out, but it'll be bottoming out on the floor of the bus. So the new problem is that when this goes in, it is not near the bottom, and it makes me wonder if I had to cut off the bottom at all. But these little support things, when I went down a size smaller on the hole saw because I thought I could get away with it, they're getting in the way. So I'm taking my jigsaw. I hammered it in a little bit to kind of mark where the supports are. And now I'm going to take the jigsaw and just jigsaw out these spots. And hopefully that will help it sit flush. All right, so after that coaxing, it now sits just fine in there. It even keeps it from spinning a little bit, but hopefully the screws will do a better job of that even. The leg fits all the way in with it just the way it is. So I think this is a winning strategy. Just wish that I hadn't cut a hole in my floor before I figured it out. Learn from my mistakes. All right, I sealed it up nice with some silicone sealant. Now I'm going to cut the next hole. All right, hole number 2. All right, same deal. I did have to cut off the bottom, just like the other one, which I'm actually happy about because that means that I did not waste any effort doing anything that I thought I had to do that I actually didn't. So I cut off the bottom. That's just the floor of the bus right there. No need for silicone in that one because I didn't cut all the way through. So now I'm just going to screw it in and then clean up a bit. And then it's time to see what the table looks like when it's in place. Alright, so first I wanted to make sure that I could pull the bed out, which, yes, I can, easily. There's lots of space actually still for it to come out. But yeah, I can still pull the bed together. These things do not get in the way. This is why I chose to have ones that were recessed into the floor. It's hard to do this one-handed, so I gotta stop. The table is in. It's pretty close to centered. I think it hangs out a little bit more on this side than this side. But it feels solid. It wobbles a little bit, but the table itself feels solid, and it doesn't feel like anything is going to break or come off, so I am happy with it. I'm going in on the other side. Look at that. Pretty damn nice, if I do say so myself. So it's really a galley table. It's not, you can't put people on it, or really a lot of heavy stuff, but for eating and laptops and hanging out, I think it's great.